Hello, everyone, and welcome to our 2025 Most Endangered Historic Places list here at Landmarks, Illinois. Just to tell you, we're going to wait just a moment to ensure that everybody can come into the webinar. And we want to have our full group of people here to hear the entire list. So give us just a moment. While we are waiting for everyone, I'm just going to let you know that the list and all of the wonderful media pieces that we have are going to be uploaded into our website throughout this webinar at landmarks.org. Again, www.landmarks.org. You can go and find more description, photographs, our media release at our website. We're looking forward to having you today, and please be thinking about your questions. We will have a Q&A at the end of the program, so you can start thinking about your questions now. And just a few more seconds, we want everybody to be able to come in. All right, great. We have one after, so it's time to get started. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for the 2025 Most Endangered Historic Places in Illinois announcement. I'm Bonnie McDonald. I'm the President and CEO of Landmarks Illinois, and I would like to welcome our members, our supporters, and the member of the press that are here with us today. I would like to remind our viewers that this presentation is being recorded. A full recording will be posted later to our Landmarks Illinois YouTube page. So please share that with your friends and your colleagues if they could not make it here this afternoon. Another note before we start, closed captioning is available for today's presentation. To enable that feature, please click on the Show Captions button at the very bottom of your Zoom screen. Now, first, I would like to give a quick introduction to Landmarks Illinois. If you're just joining us for the first time, welcome. And to just emphasize that our members help us do all of the incredible work here at Landmarks Illinois. We are a historic preservation nonprofit organization that was founded in 1971, and we provide the resources that people need to save places in their communities. Our annual Most Endangered Historic Places in Illinois launched in 1995 to call attention to culturally, historically, and architecturally significant places across the state. And we rely on public nominations to inform us of these places all around the state. Again, this is one of our longest standing programs, and we're excited to tell you more about the places today. We use the list to focus attention on sites that are threatened by deterioration, lack of maintenance, insufficient funding, or inappropriate development, and to bolster local advocacy efforts and build support for each property's eventual preservation. The Most Endangered Historic Places in Illinois also draws attention to important policy issues that affect these properties and historic properties throughout the state. Once a property is included on our most endangered list, Landmarks Illinois remains committed to its preservation efforts, continuing communication and relationships with local advocates and elected officials to provide resources, including small grants and connections where possible. Now, in many cases, this has led to years or even decades-long relationships between local advocates and Landmarks Illinois. Staff at Landmarks Illinois can also serve as a link to pro bono services from other preservation professionals, such as architects, engineers, historians, and more. Over the past 30 years, we have listed more than 300 sites, many of which have been preserved, rehabilitated, and reused. And I encourage you to visit our website to learn more about our Most Endangered program. Following this announcement, I encourage you to visit the website for more details about the sites that I'm about to tell you about, the 2025 Most Endangered list. And as I mentioned before, we are going to have a Q&A so that you can ask your questions at the end of the program. After I introduce the Most Endangered sites, members of our advocacy team who lead this program will be on screen to help answer your specific questions. Landmarks Illinois wants to acknowledge that our endangered sites are located on the ancestral land that was and still is home to several Indigenous people and Native American tribes. And through the unscrupulous and violent practices of the US government, they forced the removal of Native Americans from what is now Illinois and open lands to American settlers. And we are going to reference the American settlement period for several listed sites and acknowledge the full history of these places. We also want to acknowledge the heightened responsibility we feel this year as a preservation organization to call attention to our historic and culturally significant places. At a time when our federal government is increasingly trying to erase important stories and people of our past, Landmarks Illinois acknowledges the critical role we play in safeguarding the history of the built environment and the history that it embodies. Over the past couple of months, we have continued to reassure our constituents, our members, and supporters that Landmarks Illinois will remain steadfast in our work to promote and protect the places that represent our diversity as a state and nation, and ensure preservation remains a solution to today's challenges and its demands. So now I would like to share with you our 2025 Most Endangered Historic Places in Illinois. The first site on our endangered list is also one of the oldest, the Allen Chapel African Methodist Episcopal Church in Lincoln. However, the site is significant not only because of its age, but also because of its strong ties to Black history in Logan County and Illinois. Allen Chapel AME congregation was established in 1868 by formerly enslaved people and their descendants. They erected Allen Chapel AME Church in 1880. Like other AME churches, Allen Chapel, was not merely a house of worship, but it also served as a community space for Black residents. Notable congregants included Aaron Dyer, a conductor on the Underground Railroad in Springfield, and Harlem Renaissance poet Langston Hughes, who attended the church as a child. The church closed its doors in 2012, and it has sat vacant ever since. Over the past 15 years, it has fallen into disrepair. The roof, masonry, and foundation all need attention, and mold has infiltrated the interior. The Illinois Conference AME Church owns Allen Chapel and must address the building's ongoing maintenance needs to prevent further deterioration. The church is an enduring, tangible reminder of 19th century African-American history in Lincoln, Illinois, and it also deserves to be preserved. Ron Keller, a member of Lincoln's Historic Preservation Commission, said this about Allen Chapel, quote, "Historic buildings are our tangible connection to the past. The Allen Chapel African Methodist Episcopal Church in Lincoln, whose members included the great poet Langston Hughes, stands as a significant relic of a forgotten heritage. From the post-Civil War era through the 20th century, Allen Chapel became the place where the local African-American community gathered in kindred spirit, in common faith, and in shared struggle amidst the outside world of segregation," end quote. If you are in or near Lincoln, please help us advocate for preserving Allen Chapel. You can contact Ron Keller for more information on how to get involved. Our next 2025 Most Endangered site is the oldest one on the list, the W.A. McConnell Farmstead in Richmond. This farmstead was established 188 years ago in 1837 by the first non-native settler and colonizer of present-day Richmond, Illinois, William A. McConnell. McConnell was a carpenter from Pennsylvania, and he built a log cabin on the property. Other families followed. In 1841, the farmstead was home to the area's first school building. Both the log cabin and the school have since been lost. Other structures on the property, like a home built in 1852 and another in 1868, still stand today, as do many of its outbuildings. However, as you can see in our pictures, these remaining structures need repair. While the 1852 house is in fair condition and it's privately owned and occupied, other structures have not fared as well. The roof of the barns, for example, need immediate attention. Today, the farmstead is owned by the McHenry County Conservation District. Its annual budget for the 2024 fiscal year called attention to the need to prioritize restoring and managing its cultural heritage sites. However, it has not allocated necessary funding to protect the farmstead from continued deterioration. If repaired, the farmstead buildings could be home to a lively educational and community center that promotes Richmond's history. And it could also serve as a hub for nearby natural recreational opportunities. Adam Metz, the president of the W.A. McConnell Foundation in Richmond, had this to say, quote, "We can showcase history, architecture, and 19th century culture on a historic entry to Richmond, which is itself a preservation diamond in the rough. Better yet, the McConnell homestead lies at the entrance to the Hackamattack National Wildlife Refuge, another preservation success in Richmond," end quote. Help us preserve the W.A. McConnell farmstead by contacting the W.A. McConnell Foundation. You can also contact the McHenry County Conservation District and encourage it to allocate funds to repair farmstead structures. Now, moving chronologically through our most endangered sites, we have the Judge William D. Barry House in St. Charles up next. This Greek Revival style home was constructed in 1844 for Judge William D. Barry, an active citizen of St. Charles during the mid-19th century. His former home sits in a prominent location in the city's downtown Central Historic District. Its prime location makes it an ideal candidate for reuse, but it currently faces demolition. The home has sat vacant since at least 2017, and lack of use and maintenance has, as you can see, taken a visible toll. Baker Memorial United Methodist Church, located across the street, has owned the home since 1993, and at one time used it to provide housing for those in need. Now, it plans to demolish the house to create a parking lot. The St. Charles Historic Preservation Commission denied the church's latest demolition request last fall. The church has filed an appeal with the city's Planning and Development Committee, which has yet to vote on the issue. If repaired, the Judge Barry House has immense potential to serve the community again. It could be reused as retail space to bring economic development to the area, or as a private residence to create much needed housing, as it has already done. Steve Gibson, who's a local historian and a former member of the St. Charles Historic Preservation Commission, said this, quote, "The Judge Barry House is a rare story house, reflecting nearly 2 centuries of Illinois and national history. Preserving it honors forgotten figures and stories that would otherwise be lost, making it far more valuable than a few parking spaces," end quote. Those who want to help us preserve this historic home can call St. Charles city officials and ask that they continue to deny the church's demolition permit. Our next site is the Stevens Brothers Opera House in Watseka, built in 1884. For decades, this prominent building served as a community hub and an event center. The ground floor was home to retail businesses like JCPenney. The second floor was first home to a theater with a capacity of 700 people before becoming a silent movie theater. The theater closed in 1938, and when JCPenney vacated in 1990, numerous retail businesses came and went, during which the building began to deteriorate. Years of neglect caused the building to continue to degrade, and signs of this are visible today. On the exterior, brickwork is needed, as is a new roof. Inside is gutted and in disrepair, and the entire building also requires stabilization. It is disappointing and unnecessary to see a prominent building like this on the city's main street go underutilized and neglected. The former Opera House represents Watseka's vibrant past and has the potential to bring renewed energy to its future. In 2023, the city of Watseka purchased the building. And while this investment is a step in the right direction, the city has also suggested demolishing the building to create a parking lot. That would be a tragic loss. We believe the Opera House can once again serve as a community anchor. The local group Watseka Community Renewal has been working toward preserving the building and has created a phased restoration plan for it. John Whitman Brito, a member of the Watseka Community Renewal and the owner of the historic Roth House in Watseka, said this, quote, "Great buildings deserve second chances. The Stevens Brother Opera House served as the center of our community for 100 years. If we can pull together as a community to give it a second lease on life, it can serve the community into the next century and beyond," end quote. You can help the preservation effort by contacting Watseka Community Renewal. Our next 2025 Most Endangered site is also a former theater, the outdoor theater at the South Shore Cultural Center in Chicago. The theater opened in 1920, 4 years after the current South Shore Cultural Center was constructed. The entire complex, spanning 70 plus acres, was originally home to the South Shore Country Club. The terrazzo dance floor of the outdoor theater still features the country club's logo. The Chicago Park District purchased the property in the early 1970s when the country club closed due to dwindling membership. Over the decades, the Park District has invested in numerous restoration projects to keep many of the center's facilities open to the public. A lack of Chicago Park District funds, however, has prevented the outdoor theater from being restored. It continues to face deterioration after years of non-use and deferred maintenance. Concrete and pathways are broken, creating dangerous tripping hazards. The theater also lacks ADA compliant accessibility, as well as sound and lighting systems. The South Shore Cultural Advisory Council would like to see the theater reopened and used for arts and cultural events, especially for local youth. Anna Maria Sokovich, a member of the Advisory Council, had this to say, quote, "The theater's restoration would create an inviting space for concerts, theater performances, and cultural programming that would energize the South Shore neighborhood. The lack of adequate public spaces for youth cultural activities makes this project especially vital, providing opportunities for young people to engage with the arts, connect with their community, and experience the unique natural beauty of the lakeside venue," end quote. You can advocate for this property by contacting the Chicago Park District and expressing your support for the theater's restoration. We will stay on the south side of Chicago for our next most endangered site, the Chicago Vocational High School, or what is now known as Chicago Vocational Career Academy. This sprawling school complex in Avalon Park comprises 4 interconnected buildings constructed between 1938 and 1943. The main school building was designed by John Charles Christensen, the architect for the Chicago Board of Education, who designed a number of public school buildings, including a previous most endangered site, school buildings C and E in Altgeld Gardens. Chicago Vocational School's main building was designed in the Art Deco and Art Moderne styles. And today, it remains the largest non-skyscraper example of this architectural style in the city. Its size makes it a highly visible landmark for the South Side community, as well as drivers on the busy nearby Chicago Skyway toll road. Can't miss it. The school is also significant for the thousands of students it has provided skilled craft training to over the decades. And when it opened in 1940, it was called the most modern and best equipped trade school in the entire country. During World War II, the US Navy even operated the school as a training facility for aircraft repair. While the school was built to handle up to 6,000 students, current enrollment has dropped to under 900. Much of the school is underutilized, and an entire wing along Anthony Avenue was originally built for heavy industry vocational programs, and those have closed. This unused wing has faced demolition threats in the past. And while there are no current plans to tear it down, there are clear signs of wear. The masonry, for instance, reveals the impacts of vibration from the school's proximity to the Chicago Skyway. In 2015, CPS, the Chicago Public Schools, invested $56 million in upgrades to Chicago Vocational School, otherwise called CVS, but more work is needed. And low enrollment threatens the building's future. With proper investments and repair, Chicago Vocational School can be used to provide much needed training to address the ongoing shortage of construction trade workers. Michael L. Mims of the local CVS Restoration Project Incorporated said this, quote, "For generations, this landmark has equipped students with essential trade skills, shaping Chicago's workforce and strengthening its communities. Preserving this historic institution not only honors its proud past and safeguards a vital piece of the city's heritage, but also ensures it continues to inspire and uplift future generations," end quote. Designating the school as a Chicago landmark would be an essential step to protecting it. You can help advocate for this designation by contacting the Chicago Board of Education and Chicago Alderman Michelle Harris. We're now going to go from the south side of Chicago to southern Illinois. Our next 2025 Most Endangered site is the Spivey Building in East St. Louis. It was built for A.T. Spivey, owner of the East St. Louis Journal, in 1927 during a construction boom. At 12 stories tall, it was the city's first and only skyscraper. Today, it remains a testament to a period in which East St. Louis experienced prosperity and growth. Along with the Journal offices, the building was also home to the Illinois Light and Power Company and other businesses, and it remained occupied through the 1980s. But in the decades since, however, it has sat vacant and deteriorating. Its current condition is severe. The building is a shell with no roof and a gutted interior. The building's deteriorating exterior poses a risk to pedestrians and motorists, and the city has discussed demolition. Despite the building's current state, we do not think this landmark is a lost cause. East St. Louis has seen how a seemingly hopeless building can be revitalized. In 2021, we listed the former Broadview Hotel on our Most Endangered Historic Places in Illinois. Like the Spivey, the Broadview building was also constructed in 1927, and it remained vacant and deteriorating for a long time. However, Advocacy Consulting and Development took over the building and led its successful rehabilitation. The former Broadview has since been adaptively reused as badly needed senior affordable housing. The Spivey could also be rehabilitated to fill this need for the community. Since it is already listed in the National Register, such a project could take advantage of state and federal historic preservation tax credits, making it more financially feasible. Yafet El-Amin, president of Advocacy Consulting and Development, said this about the Spivey Building, quote, "The Spivey Building stands as East St. Louis's only skyscraper and a singular testament to the city's former economic prosperity. Including it on the most endangered list would shine a critical spotlight on this National Register property and catalyze the preservation efforts needed to transform this historic structure from a symbol of decline into an anchor for downtown revitalization," end quote. Help us advocate for the Spivey as part of the revitalization effort across East St. Louis by contacting the city's Community Development Department. We ask you to encourage the city to collaborate with developers to preserve and reuse this iconic structure. Our next 2025 site also represents a foregone era in Illinois' history. It is the Fordon Horse Barn in Oak Brook. The barn was constructed circa 1930 when Oak Brook was the polo capital of the United States. Didn't know that? Neither did I. In 1941, the barn was purchased by Jerry Fordon, who used it to house his polo ponies. Fordon was a polo player and a member of the Oak Brook Polo Club, which became one of the top polo clubs in the nation. And today, the barn is a reminder of Oak Brook's equestrian history. Its preservation feels extra crucial given the Polo Club announced in March that it was going to close. The Oak Brook Park District currently owns the barn, and it is located inside the public Saddle Brook Park. The Park District was using the barn as storage, but no longer needs it for that purpose and is pursuing demolition. The Park District intended to tear down the barn by the end of April, but pushback from residents has successfully delayed that effort. Still, the Park District's draft budget, discussed during a budget workshop in February, identifies the removal of the barn as a capital project for the upcoming fiscal year. Demolition is entirely at odds with the Park District's own goals. Its master vision plan through 2030 prioritizes preserving its cultural and historic resources. Elizabeth Arts, president of the Oak Brook Historical Society, speaks to the historic importance of this place. Quote, "The Fordon horse barn puts a spotlight on our overlooked places. It represents a window to the past, where we get a unique opportunity to experience Oak Brook from a time when farms and pastoral settings were the norm. It brings to light and amplifies the cultural and social aspects of a polo club created by Paul Butler for the community, which for a time made Oak Brook the cornerstone of American polo culture. It is worth saving and preserving a place where American history happened," end quote. We asked Oak Brook Park District officials to pursue a new use for the Fordon horse barn instead of demolition. It could be renovated and reused as a programmable space for the community. The Saddlebrook Community Association has also expressed interest in taking responsibility for the barn for community use. You can help by contacting Park District officials to express your opposition to the barn's demolition. Our next listing is a thematic one for endangered barns of a specific type, Meramec Caverns barns. These barns feature murals advertising Meramec Caverns, a network of caves on Route 66 near Stanton, Missouri. They began to pop up along Route 66 in the 1930s to promote the caves as a tourist attraction. The owner of the cave attraction, Lester Dill, and his employee, Jim Gower, painted close to 400 barns in 14 states. They would paint farmers' entire barns for free if they let the caverns advertise cave tours. Many of these barns have been lost over the decades, unfortunately. This year, Landmarks Illinois and the Illinois Route 66 Scenic Byway began identifying the remaining Meramec Caverns barns in Illinois. We know of at least 5 in Cumberland, Jackson, Livingston, and Madison counties. 2 of these we know are in heightened states of disrepair, one near Glen, Illinois, and another in Cayuga. The barns are not merely colorful roadside kitsch, but also pieces of the history of Route 66 and the National Road, 2 of the most historically significant highways in the United States. Casey Claypool of the Illinois Route 66 Scenic Byway said this, quote, "Placing the Meramec barns on the most endangered list through Landmarks Illinois is a crucial step in preserving these historic structures for future generations. This designation not only raises awareness of their cultural significance, but it also opens the door to funding and support for their restoration. By securing their place on this list, we are ensuring that these iconic landmarks continue to tell the story of advertising history in the United States and along its interstate system, while paving the way for their revitalization and long-term preservation," end quote. We continue to work with the Illinois Route 66 Scenic Byway and the Route 66 Association of Illinois to identify the remaining Meramec Caverns barns in Illinois, and in preparation for the Mother Road's 100th anniversary celebration in 2026. We hope to work with barn owners and provide preservation resources. Our goal is to stop the ongoing loss of Illinois' heritage tourism. If you know of a barn in Illinois featuring a Meramec Caverns mural, please get in touch with Casey Claypool. Our last 2025 Most Endangered site may be the most widely known. It is the J.J. Walser House in Chicago's Austin neighborhood. Designed by Frank Lloyd Wright and built in 1903, this house has received widespread attention over the past year due to its architectural significance and current deteriorated state. Our partners at Preservation Chicago recently included the house on its own 2025 Chicago 7 Most Endangered list. We have also been partnering with Austin Coming Together and the Frank Lloyd Wright Building Conservancy since early 2024 to find a preservation solution for the home. But first, some more history. The home was built for Joseph Jacob Walser and his wife Grace. It is the only single-family house Wright designed on Chicago's west side, and it is a key example, as you can see, of his Prairie period work. Hurley and Ann Teague purchased the house in 1970 and served as its stewards for nearly 50 years. Hurley was a general contractor and kept the house in good repair during his lifetime, ensuring it remained a part of the neighborhood's history. However, after he died in 1997, Ann obtained a reverse mortgage to cover ongoing maintenance of the home. Ann passed away in 2019, and the interest on the mortgage has become unaffordable for her heirs. The house is now vacant and faces foreclosure, placing it in a stewardship limbo that makes it vulnerable to continued deterioration. As you can see, current conditions are severe. There are holes in the foundation and the roof, which have caused interior water damage. For some time, the property was unsecured to trespassers. You could see the toll that it took on the inside of the home. Still, the Walser House is an irreplaceable cultural asset for Austin, a Chicago landmark, and is listed in the National Register of Historic Places. Ann Teague's heirs want to see the home continue to be a part of Austin's identity. Charisse J. Grossley and Johnny Teague, heirs of Ann Teague, had this to say, quote, "When my grandparents purchased the Walser home, it represented upwardly mobile Black people establishing legacies for their families and creating a blueprint for home ownership in the Black community. This home serves as a tangible link to our past, offering insight into the lives of those who came before us and the events that shaped our community," end quote. As a Frank Lloyd Wright design, we believe a restored Walser House has the potential to draw tourists and Wright enthusiasts from neighboring Oak Park into Austin. If you want to stay involved in preservation efforts for the Walser House, please follow the Frank Lloyd Wright Building Conservancy's Walser House webpage for detailed updates and future opportunities to take action. Well, that wraps up the 10 official sites included on this year's Most Endangered list. We have one more item to call attention to. In an unprecedented move, Landmarks Illinois is including a watch site in our announcement this year to identify an ongoing preservation threat. This is a thematic listing for federally owned historic buildings in Illinois. Since the Trump administration took office earlier this year, the federal government has begun to pursue the sale of historic buildings owned by the U.S. General Services Administration. In early March, it identified 443 properties to sell across the nation. This list included 14 properties in Illinois, several of which are significant modernist buildings. Among them were the U.S. Post Office and the Kleczynski Federal Building in Chicago, the Senator Paul Simon Federal Building in Carbondale, and the East St. Louis Federal Building. Many GSA-owned Illinois buildings are listed in or eligible for the National Register of Historic Places. However, they lack local landmark designation that could protect them against demolition or inappropriate redevelopment if sold to private owners. Later in March, the GSA posted a new and significantly shorter list of buildings it would sell. One is in Illinois, the William O. Lipinski Building in Chicago. The GSA also said its list of properties for disposal would continue to be evaluated and updated. This and the rapid changes occurring regularly under the Trump administration give us pause. While most federally owned buildings in Illinois may not currently face imminent risk, we still felt they warranted our attention and vigilance. Identifying this thematic listing as a watch site means we will monitor potential threats to the future of these buildings to ensure their preservation. It is also a continuation of the promises made to our constituents in our previous statements regarding the Trump administration's dismantling of the federal preservation program. We will keep voicing our opposition to regressive and harmful moves that aim to erase our state's history and the places people value. If you reside in Chicago, Carbondale, or East St. Louis, we are asking you to contact your local officials and ask them to proactively landmark historic federal buildings in your community. Providing this landmark protection before potential new private owners take control of the building could ensure their preservation for generations to come. Now, that concludes the 2025 Most Endangered Historic Places in Illinois. And I now want to open up our Q&A portion of today's announcement and encourage all members of our audience to participate. You can put your questions in the chat. You may have been doing so through this presentation, and we're excited to hear what you think of this year's list. To help you answer your questions, I would like to welcome members of our advocacy team who were instrumental in developing this year's list of most endangered places. That would be Kendra Parson, our advocacy manager, who handles our advocacy in Chicago and its surrounding suburbs, and Quinn Adamowski, our regional advocacy manager, who handles everything outside of that. So if you are joining us on Zoom, please, again, use that chat box to ask your questions. And we will read off your questions and try to get to as many as possible in the time that we have. But before our Q&A begins, I also want to recognize our staff off screen who have helped to make this program happen. Amber Delgado, the newest member of our team, who we welcome, is our easement and advocacy associate. Lauren Dalton, our marketing and communications manager. Caitlin McAvoy, our director of communications, and our hardworking intern, Anna Wilmhoff, who is a public history graduate student at Loyola University, Chicago. With that, let's take our first question. Kendra, Quinn, Amber.
Thank you, Bonnie. The first question that we have is from David Sokol, and he asked, why has the Allen Chapel been abandoned?
I'm happy to take that question. Thank you for it, David. I think that the issue with the Allen Chapel is that the congregation was always small. And with it aging and demographic shifts in Lincoln over the years, that resulted in even a smaller congregation that could no longer upkeep the chapel. And as time went on and it became in more disrepair, the decision was made to vacate it. And I do not think that that's particular only to Lincoln. Obviously, we see that throughout the state of Illinois and really the nation, as we see other congregations of different faiths losing their establishments, losing their people that attend there. And we do see closures across the state. I think that the Allen Chapel, though, is super important because of the history that it represents in Lincoln, Illinois, for African Americans. And working with the local folks there, it became very clear over the time that we had these conversations beginning in January. And so while it's unfortunate to see the church close, it is not uncommon, obviously, in the state and across the nation. But the building obviously does deserve to be preserved, and the heritage of African Americans needs to be remembered and celebrated in Lincoln. And so we're going to work with the local groups there to do everything we can to find a permanent solution for the site.
Our next question is from Mary Lou Seidel. And the question is, for the WA McConnell Farmstead in McHenry County, does the Conservation District have the resources to run programs out of the restored buildings? And in addition, what is a preservation solution that is financially sustainable?
Wonderful question. One that we work with local advocates on repeatedly. So the interesting thing about the farmstead is that it's in their 2024 plan. They identified it as a resource that needed to be sustained, a resource that needed to be redeveloped in some way, or at least at a minimum preserved. And so the answer regarding resources is yes and no. The Conservation District does have resources available, but the question is, how do you allocate those? And obviously that's a local decision. And so part of the reason for listing, working with the foundation, is to encourage the Conservation District to take the admittedly the lower number of resources they do have and to allocate them to this really, really important heritage site. And so ultimately, it's a choice that government bodies have to make, is how to allocate those resources. And we would encourage them to follow their own plan that they put forth, and to find a way to repurpose those particular buildings. The second part of the question is preservation solution that is financially sustainable. I think the answer to that question is to sit down with the McConnell Foundation and to better understand how to build a partnership to utilize the properties that are available. There has been discussion about living museum, educational opportunities, heritage tourism. And so if a plan is put forth that would accommodate all those different uses and would be able to generate income that would then go back into the site, that is the financially stable way to do this. And we've seen examples of that across the state, not just in conservation districts, forest preserves, with all kinds of private partnerships.
Thank you, Glenn. We just got another question from Jean. Would partial demolition damage the architectural significance of the Chicago Vocational High School?
Thank you for that question. So one of the things that makes the Chicago Vocational High School significant is its massive size. And we recognize that the student body that inhabits that space today is much smaller than the one that was there at its peak. But the entire school building is architecturally significant. Additionally, the Anthony Wing, which is a portion of the school building that is not currently in use, but at one time was proposed for demolition, is significant because it was completed by the U.S. Navy during the time that it operated the building as a training facility during the Second World War. So yes, we do believe that partial demolition would damage the architectural significance and also remove the possibility of reusing space within the school.
We just got another follow-up question from Mary Lou Seidel. For the Spivey Building, is the developer who restored the previous success story in East St. Louis interested in redeveloping the Spivey? If so, what is stopping them?
It's also another excellent question. Yes, Yafat El-Amin has expressed interest in redeveloping the Spivey Building. There have been some conversations with the city of East St. Louis regarding a possible proposal to come forth. It's not a matter of anything necessarily stopping. I think the question is the building's current condition one that is redeemable? Are there local incentives that the city of East St. Louis is going to be willing to put forth? Will the RARZ tax credit remain after 2026? So there's a lot of different questions that are there that are going to impact whether or not there is a redevelopment plan put forth. So while there is interest, it's not so much roadblocks. It's just that there's a lot of questions up in the air as to whether or not the developer can find this a feasible project. We believe that with hard work and working with the city of East St. Louis and extending the RARZ next legislative session, that in fact the answer will be yes, and that there will not be roadblocks in the way of this redevelopment. And given its strategic location next to the Broadview Hotel, which was recently redone, this could provide much needed affordable housing in East St. Louis. And we're looking forward to working with the city and Yafet on a possible redevelopment project.
Thank you, Kim. Oh, okay, another one just came in. Have there been specific and viable plans put forward for redeveloping the Stevens Brothers Opera House?
Thank you for that question. There is a local group, Watsika Community Renewal, that started working with an architect back in January to evaluate the building to find a permanent use. And so the question to that answer really is, it's in progress. We believe, having been there multiple times, having worked with the local group, having had Berglund Construction do a pro bono conditions assessment, that this building does have a future and it can be an anchor for economic development in downtown Watsika. And so our hope here is that the city commits to doing the right thing with the building and helps work with Watsika Community Renewal to find a development plan moving forward. And Landmarks Illinois stands here waiting to bring as many resources as necessary to facilitate that. We do believe that this is a project that has definite potential. The local group there does, and we do know that there is interest on the city council. And so the preliminary plans that they have, there's interest and they're viable in that way. And as time moves on and an architect has a better chance to come up with a clear proposal, not one that's just vague, we do believe that there's a plan moving forward.
Shortly after that, we received a question from Thomas Pope, and I believe he's referencing the Spivey Building. And he said, it seems this could be a great opportunity for conversation to residential rental type units, perhaps. Was that ever looked at by the developer? And again, I think this is in reference to the Spivey Building.
Yes, so Advocacy Consulting, they specialize in affordable housing. The aforementioned Broadview Hotel is a senior affordable housing. But in talking with the City of East St. Louis Community Economic Development Department, there's a need for all types of affordable housing. And so the target for the Spivey Building would indeed be that, with some commercial space at the first floor, is sort of the preliminary discussions.
Amber, while we're waiting for others to consider their questions, I know that there are people in the audience who often are wondering what happens to our former most endangered sites. So I wondered if our team could pick some of their, the greatest hits and give us an update on some things that have happened to our recent most endangered. Kendra, can we start with you?
Sure. Well, I would love to give everyone an update on the Harley Clark Mansion in Evanston, which was on our most endangered list in 2016. And I think one of the reasons that I love this example is because it illustrates that when Landmarks Illinois places a site on our most endangered list, we are in it until the end. And I think in this case, the Harley Clark Mansion in Evanston is poised for redevelopment and reuse. In March, the Evanston City Council approved a 40-year lease with Celadon Construction Corporation, which is planning a $25 million project to restore and reuse the mansion as an events venue and a hotel. The project will take advantage of state and federal historic preservation tax credits, and it will also maintain meaningful public access to the building and the grounds. So we see this as a fantastic win for reuse and a wonderful plan for a publicly owned building along Evanston's lakefront. So we're really pleased to be able to share that news with those of you attending.
Kendra, well, so Quinn, hold that thought for just a second, because I do think our folks are probably wondering what's happening with the Century and Consumers building, since they weren't on that disposal list, were they? So what's happening?
Thank you for that question, Bonnie. That's correct. So the Century and Consumers buildings, which are located on State Street in downtown Chicago, are two buildings owned by the General Services Administration that previously appeared on our most endangered lists in 2022 and in 2023. They were at that time proposed for demolition. And through public consultation and ongoing conversations, the GSA announced at the end late last year that they would instead pursue adaptive reuse of those buildings. So as far as we are aware, adaptive reuse is proceeding. And identifying a new user who will enter into a long-term lease agreement with the General Services Administration for the reuse of those two buildings. They have not appeared on any of the lists released by the General Services Administration for accelerated disposition. And so until we hear otherwise, we do believe that adaptive reuse is going forward.
That's great to hear. Thank you. Thanks for all of your hard work, as well as the many partners who we have joined with on that advocacy effort.
Yes, too many to list today, but we thank all of them.
Yes. Yeah, thank you, Kendra. Quinn, what would you like to bring up as your success stories?
I think we'll start with the Broadview Hotel, which has been referenced already, because that project was just completed in March, late March. And so Yafet El-Amin led the effort for a $45 million redevelopment, which created 110 units of affordable housing for seniors. And there's also some commercial space there. And that building was in disrepair for a very long time. And it was the largest project East St. Louis has seen in terms of private investment in the past 20 years. And so I think that's a huge win for the city of East St. Louis, preservation in general, and really shows how historic tax credits can champion projects that otherwise would not happen. I think another recent one was the state historic sites, which we listed last year in 2024. As a consequence of that, the state did decide to move forward in an aggressive manner to begin evaluating the state historic sites, their portfolio, the needs assessment across all those sites. And so now there is forming a state historic preservation board to do just that. And we discussed that at length last year, but we're excited to see the progress even in just 1 year's time that board is about to get off the ground. And additionally, and perhaps more importantly, at least for the folks in Bishop Hill, the state has allocated $12 million for the redevelopment rehabilitation of the Bishop Hill Colony Church. The Capital Development Board is working right now with JLK Architects, who are developing plans and looking through to determine really what needs to happen. So we're very, very happy for our friends in Bishop Hill. They have advocated strongly for the past 3 or 4 years for resources to come back into that National Historic Landmark. There are others, Bonnie, but I know in the interest of time, those are the two that I wanted to highlight.
Well, as Amber says so, I have a follow-up question, because I do think, much like the Center and Consumers, that our community is very interested in what's happening in Brooklyn, since the work we've done with other partners has continued to bring additional resources to our partners. Could you give a very brief update about Brooklyn, Illinois?
Absolutely. Brooklyn is a remarkable place. And late last year, they went through a community mapping progress with Western Illinois University. Western Illinois did that for free. And the community came together, and up to 70 people came into a room to determine the future of Brooklyn, what they wanted that to look like. And we began engaging with them in January. We've been having monthly meetings. And now other folks in the state have reached out offering pro bono services. And so now the hope is that the community mapping program, the guidelines that the community put forth, will become part of a larger comprehensive plan for the community that they can use to go find much needed resources through the state, through private foundations, through the federal government. So it's really exciting, because this is not just a preservation project. This is a whole community development project. And it's really exciting to see how preservation of heritage and of their historic sites plays a major role in that.
Well, as we're closing, I think we just have one more question, and then we can kind of wrap up with final thoughts. And this question is from Sarah, and she asked, are there any reuse plans for the Allen Chapel, or are they focusing on the stabilization for now?
That's a great question. There is hopes and dreams, and there is concept plans of turning the chapel into an African American Heritage Museum, which obviously makes a lot of sense. But before they can entertain really going into depth on those plans, they do need to stabilize the building. So yes, right now the interest is in identifying the building needs, identifying the funds that are required to address those needs before a full-scale plan can be put forth for adaptive reuse of some kind.
Well, thank you. Phenomenal job, Amber. I would say at this point, we need to make sure we wrap up. So thank you so much to our advocacy team for their work, to, Kendra, Quinn, Amber, who we're so excited to have on our team. Of course, Frank Butterfield has not been mentioned, but he also works hand in hand with the advocacy team and our communications team, who ensure that you can read about all of these projects. And if we didn't get to a question that you think after the press conference, oh, I should have asked this, then please go to our website and find the staff page and how to reach out to us. We would love to hear from you. Also, please make sure that you are subscribed to our email communications to hear about the updates on the 2025 Most Endangered sites, as well as you heard, we have some wonderful updates to our past endangered. We have those that have become award winners that we'll have later this fall. And by the way, we are accepting award nominations right now for the Landmarks Illinois Richard H. Driehaus Foundation Preservation Awards. The nominations are due on June 1st, everyone. So if you have those success stories, please make sure you bring them, because it inspires everybody to do this work. What also we would say, we love to have your partnership with us as members, as supporters. So to all of the members who are here today, who have supported this incredible work you've heard, thank you so much. And if you are not a member or a donor of Landmarks Illinois, I ask you to please consider this. We do not charge anybody for the work that you just heard of. And you just heard of 10 sites plus a watch list that are amongst about 200 projects that our team is working on all around the state at any given time. So I ask you to support us if you feel this work is meaningful to you and to communities. You can go to our website and easily find the donate button right on our website, landmarks.org, where you learn more about the most endangered sites and donate toward our efforts to help people between our trying to find pro bono services. We have our grants programs and our reinvestment program loan fund. And if you want to help us expand our grants work, please talk to me, and I will talk to you about how to donate specifically for expansion of our grants projects. So once again, I would like to show our appreciation from Landmarks Illinois for your time and attention today, and hopefully that you will get engaged. There is an action step for every one of our most endangered properties. So I hope that you will get active and help the sites that we have noted today. You can also come back and find out more about what we're doing and this, what's happening with our endangered sites at our annual meeting, which is coming up on June 24th. It is free to register, it is virtual, and we would love to talk to you with our annual report. And we will also give an update at that time, June 24th, about what's happening with the Federal Preservation Program. That's going to be our presentation this year. So please join us, and we will give you updates on what we've heard, what we're learning between incentives and regulatory programs. So stay tuned for that. So thank you again, everybody. And this will be uploaded to our YouTube page if you'd like to go back and see any part of it or share it. And we want to say thank you again for your support of preservation, and we hope you have a great day. Take care.